Hello, Mr. Hausman. How can I help you today?
Fresh baked cookies. These are so good. You know, I was really looking forward to seeing your city on a hotel, but I think I'm just going to stay here. What time do you bring out the next batch?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast. This is me, your host, Glenn Hausman, and we are recording this, and if you're fortunate enough to be participating when it's live on Facebook, but for the rest of you, this happened several weeks ago. I hope that you enjoy your trip back into the past with me, Glenn Hausman, here at the No Vacancy Podcast, coming at you from AHOA, the annual conference at the Gaylord National. I am joined with Mr. Rupesh Patel, who's with SmartGuests.com and happens to be a hotel owner who loves empowering guests. How are you, sir?
Excellent. So happy to be on again.
I know. Well, it's been too long since we had you on last time, and I'm really glad to have you back here this time. But before we get going, I want to say that this show is brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy partner that thousands of hotels are using to make more money. That's right. If you guys like making money and you like making more of it, you're going to love working with Duetto. You can check them out at GetRevenueResults.com. GetRevenueResults.com to learn all about what you need to know in order to have a comprehensive revenue strategy. And I did a great interview with their CEO, Patrick Bosworth, which I know you're going to love, and you can check it out. All you have to do is go to GetRevenueResults.com. And if you're feeling generous, and I know you are out there, check out Patreon.com/NoVacancy. Just throw us a couple of bucks. You know, I work hard. My kids are teenagers now. They eat a whole lot, and be really helpful to if you could help out. You know, you've got kids, Rupesh. They just don't stop eating. It's like every time, 3, 4, 5 times a day.
Absolutely. You know, we go out to eat once, maybe twice a week, and now these bills are crazy. Like, these guys are eating adult meals where kids meals might be like $2 or $3, and now it's like a full size. Like, they want an adult meal, which is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it's super crazy. They just do not stop eating. So as I was saying, we came here. We're at AHOA, and if you're streaming live, that's great. Send us your comments, your thoughts. But now we're going to get into it. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get this show on the road, man. Yes. Rupesh, you are. What I really like about you is not just the stuff that you do to appeal towards your guests, but the way that you love to connect with your staff. Because as we all know, staff engagement is really the be-all, end-all of making sure you have a successful business.
Absolutely. It's our staff that's making us the money. It's our staff that's welcoming guests. It's our staff that is, taking care of your business. So why not treat them amazing, right? They say if you take care of your staff first, right, your customers will be happy. Yeah.
So how do you do that? What are some of the? I think let's go through this. You get somebody, you hire them on staff. They're going to be good, but then you've got to make them great, and you've got to make them enthusiastic, and then from there everything just kind of runs itself, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I've been through my fair share of GMs and managers and staff in general, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge in the industry. It's a challenge in any business, right?
Right.
Getting a good person on board, and my thing is, do you have somebody that actually cares?
Right.
Cares about the business, cares about people, cares in general, right? If they don't care, you can't empower them at all.
Okay, so I guess first it's an issue of trying to hire people that care, right? Which was incidentally a Best Western commercial tagline from a number of years ago. Stay with people that care. I love that. So how do you hire in a way that people are going to care, and then we could get into how you maintain that, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So it's been a while since I actually hired somebody. We've had a great team, and
I was about to say, I forgot you're such a big man now.
No. Hiring GMs or just line level employees. It's a challenge, but the process that we go through, the questions that we ask,
right?
We ask real life questions like, in this scenario, what would happen if you had this happen? And how they react to it. Right? If you had a guest that came up to the front desk and was screaming at you because their hot water doesn't work, how do you treat them, right? And then the opposite, like if somebody was really happy about their stay, what are you saying about that? How are you reacting? These people. Simple ideas, like if you see somebody taking, let's say you have stairs,
right.
They're walking bags or their luggage upstairs. Are they nice enough to say, hey, can I give you a hand, right? Do they actually care? So that's a big part of, of our business.
So how do you know if somebody is going to be a right fit for your organization culturally and care-wise?
It's the questions that you ask. It's kind of doing the references. It's kind of doing background. It's having them interview with 4 or 5 people, not just a GM. Have them come in and interview with the housekeeping supervisor. Let them ask questions and see if they really connect with the team, because it's kind of like a family where you bring somebody on and that cousin or that uncle that just drags everybody down. It's a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah, that really is a bummer. And if you do want to get bummed out by bad hotel stories, check out on the Reddit feed Tales from the Front Desk, which is really pretty funny, and it talks about all these horrible guest stories.
So funny.
You read that too?
I do.
Yeah. So that's a great way for you you hotel people to be able to vent privately to other fellow hoteliers. But when it comes to treating guests right, you've got to treat them right every single time. And that's one of the things. I see that certainly guests are not always rational. Guests are not always practical, and they have a lot of weird things about them.
Quirks.
Sometimes. Quirks. That's a great way to put it. Me, I'm an amazing hotel customer. I never cause anyone any guff, anytime, anywhere. But we're not talking about wonderful stand-up guys like me. How do you train people to be able to negotiate that so they don't come away as an employee feeling damaged by dealing with negative energy coming from customers?
Right. We say put yourself in their shoes, right? If they were upset let me give you a story.
Yeah, great.
Last night, I checked into my hotel.
Right.
I use a restroom, and I look over to the tub, and there's a hair on the floor mat, right?
Right.
And what would you most guests, or not most guests, some guests that complain would go down and just scream and yell and do all these things. But it's how you react to them. And we say to our associates, how would you feel if you had a hair, or if you had your shower wasn't working or something in the room? Put yourself in their shoes and then react. Like, Mr. Smith, I'm so sorry. I could understand how that feels, right? You have to be that kind of caring person where you can't take it personally. I always say, don't take stuff personally. Sometimes something really bad happens, you take it home and it just ruins your day. Don't take it personally. It's just part of the business, right? Hot water is going to go out. The AC is not going to work. People are not going to show up. It's part of our business. It's just things that happen, right?
So it's a lot about having empathy and showing that you care, to use that word again.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you keep the staff motivated on a day-to-day type of a basis? I see, you're very good with posting on LinkedIn, and you find ways to tell interesting stories and also praise all of your people within the organization and just show that you're an organization that cares. So how do you set up that culture, I guess, and how do you make sure that the people that are working in your hotels actually feel cared for and part of a community, as opposed to just coming in and clocking in for a job?
Right. And so I was like maybe the other side of the business, as far as, hey, I just cared about making money. This is like 10 years ago, maybe longer. But I just wanted to make sure that we sold rooms, and that was it, right?
Right.
And when the economy went down, we all went down. We started losing money, right? And it affected everybody. So I would think of ways to get business into our property, and nothing was happening until I read some books and some stories online, and started following some really awesome people that shared customer service tips and ideas and strategies.
This is where you're supposed to say, I learned everything on the No Vacancy podcast.
Yes. You know what? I wish your podcast was around 10 years ago. Right. It would have been awesome to learn all these things that people are sharing, because people are sharing amazing things online, right? So I just changed my focus. I said, you know what? I'm going to try this customer service thing and see if it works for our business, because I see this other business or these other people really generating great feedback. And this is before TripAdvisor was getting huge and social and all that stuff. And I said, you know what, we're just going to change our focus. Instead of thinking about how much money we made every day, think about how many happy guests there were that stayed with us, right? And as soon as I did that, and I started implementing all these ideas to empower our employees to stand out, ask questions, and do quarterly training. So every quarter we train all our employees, including housekeepers. Everybody comes and sits down for a couple hours. We're actually doing one in a couple weeks, where they learn ideas not just about the business of hospitality or the hotel business, but life lessons that they can take on for the rest of their career or the rest of their life,
or just even when they leave the hotel for the night.
Right. Being good people, right?
Right.
And so we do these trainings where we share ideas and we ask, one cool idea is get somebody, like let's say you have a training, nominate 2 people to come do a life lesson or a learning lesson of some sort for 5 to 10 minutes in front of everybody. That empowers them to be a leader, even if they're not, they don't have a title of the GM or they don't have a title of some management position, to come teach something. It doesn't have to be about hotels, but that empowers people to show that they actually care about the business, they care about you, and they care as a family, which has been powerful, right?
Yeah.
You can bring people together like that. So that's a huge part of how we started the culture, is getting ongoing training. Because I heard this last night from another hotel. I'm not going to say his name. He said, I love what you're doing online, but I want to bring you in. Can we do it maybe like the hour before our Christmas party?
What?
He said that, and I was like,
because I know before Christmas parties, everyone's really focused on learning and education.
Yes. And, I was the same way. I was like, you know what? We're going to have a holiday party, or we're going to have this celebration, and we'll just throw in training. But that never works because you're not in that same mindset of learning. You're in a different mindset.
Right. So basically what you're saying is there are people out there that are looking for a quick fix solution, rip the Band-Aid off of it, as opposed to, let that wound heal over time and really create a cultural shift and change in order to drive that long-term satisfaction by your employees, which will then translate that into treating your customers much nicer.
Absolutely. Culture is a long-term game plan. It's not the short-term game plan where you change one thing and then everyone's happy. It's not like that, because people come in and out of your business, right? And if you have this one set of standards that everybody lives by, like when we have these trainings and new associates come on board, I look them in the eye. I'm like, listen, we have this culture, we have this family. You'll quickly understand if you don't fit in here, and you're going to quit right away, because you're going to see that I can't treat people this way. I can't talk to guests this way. I can't treat our own employees or our your cohorts this way, right? Which is powerful, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of hoteliers and business people in general, they don't share those ideas and say, hey, listen, we really are strong. We believe in this stuff, right?
Right.
And then we live it by it too. So even every morning we say, empower yourself, but let other guests know that you care, just by little things like. Your phone.
I know.
Is that your family member is calling you? Where are you?
No, it was somebody from the D.C. area calling. I wonder if it's the next interview, wondering what's happening. But it doesn't matter to me, because we're on Facebook Live and we're talking to Rupesh Patel, and you're the most important one right now.
Thank you. So it's just a lot of communication, which a lot of hoteliers, even now and in the past, it's hard to communicate that you care. And being thankful, like, when's the last time you actually thanked anybody at your property, right? Actually said, you know what, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Right.
And we say these words weekly. Like we just got a letter on Sunday, this past Sunday, from a guest, and I'll show you later.
Yeah.
But it is crazy. It wowed me. I actually sent that guest an email yesterday saying thank you so much, and it was about our GM. He was like, in his, not his review online, his email, a long email to us, said, listen, your employees, this GM really cares because she did this, and this. She looked after. She asked us questions. She went above and beyond, right? When you walk into a hotel, do you have the GM at the front desk, or do you have somebody in management during breakfast hours talking to guests, right? Because other employees see that, and they see that they can become leaders when they're engaging, when they're doing all these kind of to empower yourself, right? Empower the team.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't see enough is the general manager, whoever's in charge, walking around that breakfast room. To me, if we're talking the select service hospitality environment, that is your one major opportunity per day to really make that connection with guests. And as I say, I think on each and every episode on this podcast is you're not going to connect with your guests by offering them better technology. It's the interactions between human beings where all of that magic happens. Yeah. And if you're not having somebody out at the breakfast area caring for the guests, asking for the guests, making them feel like they're part of the family in your hotel, then I think you're really missing out on opportunity.
Absolutely. If you want to, here's a quick tip, and it's an awesome tip. If you want to raise your service scores, your GIS or GSS scores, your reviews, do this tomorrow. Do this tomorrow morning. If you're the GM or the owner, have your GM, or if you're the GM or whatever, spend time at breakfast for 2 hours. Do nothing besides, when you get there, spend 2 hours in breakfast engaging. asking guests, how was your stay? What could we have done better? What can we do to improve for your next stay? What will you tell your friends about us? Will you post a review online?
Right.
Ask questions that, get responses, and I guarantee you that that guest is going to be like, listen, I've never been treated this way, right? And that's what we do every day.
Yeah.
That's how you kind of empower everybody to see that, hey, we care.
Right, and let's add another layer to that. Help you make money while you're asking those questions. Also get into conversation. How did you hear about our hotel? What brought you to the neighborhood today?
Absolutely.
Why are you staying with us? For all you know, you could be unlocking the secrets to a whole new revenue stream by figuring out the patterns of why people are staying with you. Yeah, sure, it may be that soccer tournament that's down the road, but it might be something more meaningful that's really changing the whole nature of the neighborhood that you could get on, connect with guests. If you have those conversations with them, they're more than likely to come back. I just go on and on and on.
It's so powerful. Like, it's changed. It's brought our scores up ridiculously, right? It's just crazy.
Right. And it's also a great opportunity. If there is something that's not right for the guest, they'll feel comfortable and prompted in that moment to share what that is. Then you have the opportunity to turn it around and turn a negative probably into a net positive as well.
Yes. If you want to prevent bad TripAdvisor reviews, do this tomorrow. Spend 2 hours in breakfast,
right,
talking to guests, fix their problems before they leave, right, and show that you care. You might get a customer for life.
Right.
We've had that plenty of times. We've recovered guests, and they've stayed with us forever, right? And they tell other people too, like, oh, this hotel actually cares. This GM actually cares, right? So, that's part of the whole culture, right?
So what do you do to reward your staff for doing the right thing, going out of their way, and all of that sort of stuff?
We do gift cards. We do thank you. Listen, the highest compliment is just a thank you.
Yep.
Like, you're doing an awesome job, right? Some people aren't motivated by money, right? They're not motivated by a lot of like material things. But if you just say thank you so much, like sit down and say, you know what? This guest came up to me and said, you do an amazing job. And I see that you're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much. Like, we really appreciate it. Like, without you, we wouldn't be here, right?
Right.
That is huge for us.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's true. Most people are not motivated by money. I, however, am. So go to patreon.com/novacancy. And, or at least if you don't have the money, you do that consummate thank you. Give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts over there, which will go a long way to making me happy and keep doing this show. But all right, you are the consummate entrepreneur. I remember when we first got to know each other, we were at an AHOA event, and you were scooting around on one of those skateboard things. I forgot. The hoverboards. That's what they were called, right? And you were ahead of that cusp, and you really got in it before they all started exploding on everybody. And that's right.
Luckily, mine didn't explode. I just got in and out at the right time. That was kind of my business plan.
Yeah, you do. You seem to always be popping up in and out doing little things. But the consistent thing that you do is smartguest.com, where you find ways to help hotels appreciate their customers.
Absolutely. We've helped small mom and pops to huge, like the United States largest and tallest hotel, right? We've helped everybody, and it's awesome to see our clients and customers improving their service scores, improving their reviews online,
right,
and just really improving their asset, right? And that's what I'm passionate about, like helping others to see that they can make a big difference in their business.
Yeah, so one of the things that you do, it's just a small, simple, easy to do thing, is just like if you're going to give away a chocolate bar, you could wrap it and have their name on that chocolate bar and on the wrapping. I think that's fun. It's cute. It's a little bit something, but to me, it's just a wink and it shows that your employees care about the customers.
Right. So yeah, what you're talking about is our custom candy wrapper template. Mm-hmm. It's basically a PDF that our designers designed for you with your location, logo, and all that stuff. And we customize it and send it to you as a tool for you to engage and recognize your rewards member,
right,
your best, your best guests that are staying with you, or a group of guests, right, or your corporate clients or whatever. But it's a great tool where on the fly you can print the guest name, wrap it around a candy bar, wrap it around a water bottle, and present it. There's like last night I stayed at this hotel that gave me 2 water bottles with nothing on it. Didn't make me feel special. Everybody gives water bottles these days, right? But how are you personalizing their stay? Like, how are you getting to know them, or how are you recognizing them? And I got this idea from Coke a couple years ago. Remember when everyone's names?
You mean Coca-Cola, not the drug?
Not the drug. No,
I can totally picture you there. Oh, yeah, man, I got a great idea.
That is actually considering that. No, Coca-Cola. Yes. It's a great brand. They've come up with a lot of awesome ideas. Their marketing is so strong. I took this idea and this concept because, listen, in business, you can't make up your own rule. Well, you can make up your own rules, but you get ideas from other businesses. That's why I love traveling. That's why I love staying at other hotels. I love staying at other brands, and I love staying and doing business with cool companies because they bring so much technology and ideas and little things like this custom wrapper into our business, right? We can't live in our own bubble, so I love doing that. Like thinking outside of like, I'll go to a Blaze Pizza and see like the something that they do that I will bring into my business, right? That's how we got to think as hoteliers.
A custom wrapper, by the way, my favorite MC from 1990s from the hip hop community.
That's so funny.
Sorry.
Yeah, so we provide a lot of tools like that engage and kind of help our hotels, right? Our bread and butter really improve.
Right. So any other tips that you want to share now?
Listen, I have 100,000 tips. I love social media. I love marketing. One tip is get on LinkedIn. I've spoken to maybe like 50 or 60 hoteliers in the last couple of hours, and I'm like, are you on LinkedIn? Because I would love to connect with you, and they're not.
They're not
on LinkedIn. So I'm actually going to write an article about this, like 10 reasons why you need to be on LinkedIn if you're a hotelier.
Unfortunately, you'll put it up on LinkedIn and they won't see it.
No, we'll have to put it up on my blog,
right?
At Smart Guest, but. Yeah, it's powerful. He's learning so many ideas. I see your stuff. It's awesome.
I love LinkedIn. I think that for us in this universe, it's probably the most effective means of social media communication. There was a lot of years early on, I'm like, I don't understand LinkedIn. I link in with someone and that's kind of it. But since that time, it's really transformed into something that, to me, is extremely essential every single day. That's driving people to visit the novacancy.news.com website. That's driving people to listen to the podcast. That's helping me create a sense of community around what I do, and I know it's doing the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like the number one thing I recommend to a lot of people. Like, go ahead and get on LinkedIn. Even if you're not sharing stuff, come learn stuff on this platform because it's amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And there's so much out there. Every hotel brand out there is sharing ideas, strategies, the way to improve your business on LinkedIn. So if you're not on it, it's not Facebook. It's not you're gonna look at cat videos and see what your grandmother ate for dinner or whatever. Right. It's stuff that can change your business overnight.
I mean, seriously, Facebook is all either, like you said, cat videos, or I hate politics, or I hate your politics. It's pretty much it's pretty much what it's become, which is exhausting. Now, to me, I think the side of the future, MySpace.
MySpace. I think I still have my MySpace account, and I think I still have my Friendster account. So I'm gonna look into those. And I think.
Hey, also get this. We got some questions coming from live. So Chris Griffith asks, how big of a role does debt play in what you do, from acquiring an asset to operating it to selling it? Could you imagine accomplishing success in this space without debt? Totally not what we've been talking about, but as an entrepreneur, you know all about this subject.
How is debt?
Yeah. So how big of a role does debt play in what you do, from acquiring assets to operating to selling? Can you imagine accomplishing success in this space without having debt?
Yeah, debt's all around us, right? So, it just depends on your asset allocation. It depends on a lot of little things, right? Mm-hmm. It could hurt you or it could break you, right, in a slow time. So,
well, to me, from my opinion on that whole issue, is if you don't have some sort of debt, you're probably not going to be in a position to even build your asset, right? It's about doing it. Smartly. Smartguest.com. And
I like that.
And I'm seeing the banks these days are looking to get a little bit more money put in. So I'm seeing the mezzanine financing coming in and helping, and really helping to cover those debts. So if you want to be successful, you need to have debt in order to do that. I'm a big believer. Yeah, I'm a big believer in using other people's money in order to make you successful. I unfortunately have not taken that advice myself because I'm just a podcaster. I'm not a hotel owner yet. I got to get into this business.
Listen, to my uncle, there's an uncle that actually taught me how to drive. So I think at 6 years old, I was sitting on his lap, and in Houston, I grew up in Houston, Texas. He said OPM, other people's money, and I can't forget it. So debt is something that
Oh, right. So OPM, also a forgotten Danny DeVito film from the 1980s or early 90s. Go check that out. All about I think it was about them coming in and taking over a factory in a small town or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of my old references. I should just go back to to debt conversations.
Definitely, I'm passionate about customer service. I'm passionate about marketing. I'm passionate about the hotel business.
Right.
I'm passionate about how we can grow and how we can connect with our guests to have them keep coming back, and and they're just entrepreneur in general. Like I have like 100 ideas. My wife probably hates me right now because I wake up with so many ideas a day. She's like, just stop.
Yeah.
But no, it's fun.
Yeah. Any final words of advice?
No.
All right.
Not really. Enjoy the week. I'm excited to connect with people here at the HOA, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, man. All right.
Thanks for having me on.
I like the strong finish. That's you gotta punch it up right there at the end. So I want to thank all of you for listening. If you've been watching this Facebook Live post, that's great. If you're downloading this on the podcast, you can go to novacancynews.com and watch the video presentation if you prefer to do that. And if not, if you're at the gym, if you're in the pool, if you're at the commute, thanks for listening to this, and we'll be right back after this.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Glenn Hausman, and you know me from the No Vacancy podcast, but I have got an all-new show coming, and I'm partnering up with the #1 guy in hospitality, Mr. Anthony Melchiori.
Now, it's called the yin and yang of hospitality.
That's right.
So I need to know going forward, because I'm a control freak, am I yin or yang?
I'm definitely the one that starts with Y, and you could be whichever one you want to be.
I'll be the one that starts with Y.
All right, so you're going to have more great banter just like this every single episode on the yin and yang of hospitality, found wherever your favorite podcasts are available. Any final thoughts?
Yes, I'm yang.
All right, I'm Ying. Thanks for listening.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, Glenn Hausman. And listen, I know I sound a little hyper today. That's because I've been at a conference for 2 days. I totally have no energy left. But I walked into this room and I got inspired and excited because I get to talk to a CEO today, Mr. Pat Pacious, Chief Executive Officer and President of Choice Hotels International. Our first time sitting down together since he is CEO. Thank you so much for tolerating my presence.
Well, thank you, Glenn. I sit in a conference room all day long, and so you brought some great energy in here. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, and you do get to sit in conference rooms all the time, but don't we all sit in conference rooms all the time? One of the things, Pat, that happens to me is everybody's like, where are you going on vacation next? What are you doing next? But if you're anything like me, it's like, well, all I got to see is whatever I saw in the Uber, and then the art wall on the wall in the conference room, right?
That's right. My spouse and my kids are all like, "Oh, you've come. You were just in such and such a place," and I'm like, "Yeah. Well, what'd you see? A conference room and a bunch of people, and and it's. I didn't really get out and see the environment, so it's good to always do that when you are traveling.
Right, but they did have 2 types of chips for me to choose from,
exactly.
So it was a very rewarding conference experience. So. Congratulations. First, I know it's been a little while, but congratulations on ascending to CEO. What is that like now to be totally in charge, not including the board of directors, but, to be in charge of the organization?
Well, it's pretty exciting. For us as a company, I've been with Choice Hotels for over 12 years. So I was very familiar with the business. And but when you step into the lead role, you're kind of like the mayor.
Right.
It's your responsibility to go out and shake a lot of hands and kiss a lot of babies and really kind of talk to people about where you're taking the business, which is kind of exciting because it's, as a person who's worked for Choice for a long period of time, running our strategy group, that's really sort of the long-range plan. Where are we headed in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? So it's kind of fun to be in that role now. And everything I used to write that my previous predecessors had to say, now I get to actually not only say it, but I got to deliver on it as well. So it's pretty exciting.
That is exciting. So when you started out in your career, do you go, hey, one day I want to be a CEO, or does it just kind of happen over time?
I think, you go through life, and every time you sit down with your boss, you say to yourself, I think I could do his or her job.
Right.
And, after a while, that sort of intimidation factor goes away, and you kind of see yourself in their role, and it just sort of, after a while, you say, well, You work around enough CEOs and boards of directors, and you say, I think I could do that job too.
Right. That's why I started this podcast, so nobody could tell me what I'm doing wrong. So I could feel good about myself.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, though, to be in this role, to be taking charge of a company. It must be kind of energizing, exciting, but I would say for me it would be a little bit scary and nerve-wracking to be going to uncharted territory.
Yeah, for me, I don't view it as uncharted, right? Having kind of been around the business a long period of time, I kind of know where we want to go. Mm-hmm. The strategy we're executing at the company level is something I've been a part of. So it wasn't like I kind of didn't come from outside the industry or from a different company.
And you had a transition plan, even.
Yeah, a really good transition plan. It's one of the things it's actually pretty unusual in the public company arena, which is kind of funny. But the number one job of the board of directors is to hire the next CEO and making sure that they have the right person in place. And in our case, the board really, probably about 4 years ago, sat down and said, who do we want to lead the business in the next 10 years? My predecessor lasted 10 years. His predecessor was in the role for 10 years. So our board of directors really thinks for the long term. And what they were looking for was someone that had a digital background. So I've run our technology organization for about 8 years. So I really understand not just sort of the nuts and bolts of how the technology stack comes together, but the fact that, acquiring technology talent and making sure that you can't just say, okay, our technology strategy is in place, let's sit back for the next 3 years and watch that happen. It's something that really every quarter you're sitting down and saying, are we headed in the right direction?
Right.
The second thing they looked for was someone that had international experience. I've run our international team for about 5 years as well. So I have a real good understanding that what works in the U.S. doesn't work in Europe, doesn't work in Asia-Pac. And really understanding how when you go into different global markets, you have to rethink the franchise-only model. You have to think when we're asset-light, which we are, how does that work in a place like Japan? How does it work in Brazil? How does it work in Australia, some of the countries that we're in?
Right,
so I had that global background.
Right, because Brazil is a completely different universe on how hotels are owned and operated compared to here in the United States, for example. So first of all, I love that phrase technology stack. I think that's really great. But you make a really interesting point because I feel like all hotel companies are technology companies now, whether or not they acknowledge it and want to admit to it. So having that experience and being in there, I guess, before this whole technology revolution really started to gain the speed that it's getting, helped give you that perspective to lead what's a technology company that happens to sell hotel rooms in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. I look at our company as being in really three businesses.
Right.
We're in the hospitality
of course.
business, right? This is a hotel conference that we're at right now. We're also a franchisor. So I compete not just with the other hotel brands, but I compete with the Domino's and the Paneras and the McDonald's of the world for individual small business owners who want to run a business. So whether they run a hotel, they run a fast food chain store, we compete with those folks for capital to come in, and we've done had a pretty successful history of bringing people into the hotel business. Today, about 60% of the new franchise agreements we sell are to our existing owners, which is great. But the other 40 are for people who have never worked with Choice Hotels before, and some of those have never been in the hotel industry before. So that's the second. The third thing is technology.
Right.
So we're a technology business. We run a platform that basically takes 200 million people every year, connects them to our 500,000 rooms, which we sell every night, and that platform is a $7 billion transaction engine. And if you think about how people book hotels today, think about the Internet of Things. You used to just call up a call center or you used to just drive down the highway and see a hotel. Now you can book on your watch, you can book through your phone, you can book through your refrigerator. I mean, it goes on and on, right? The amount of places that the consumer can interact with our hotels is really exploding. And so you've got to have an infrastructure that's built for the future.
Totally. I mean, Echo, book me Cambria Suites.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that.
Yes.
We have an innovation lab, and we do these things called hackathons. You have people come in, our technology people come in on a Friday night. We give them pizza and Skittles. And 24 hours later, they worked with the Alexa coding set, and we're able to figure out how do you book a room using an Echo.
Right.
Now the question is, how do you bring that to market? How do you bring that in a way the consumer can actually interact with it?
I like your definition of hackathon better. The last hackathon I was part of was just people who are really bad at their jobs. So, so I'm glad that you're doing it the right way. So you are able, with all the, with everyone getting on the Skittles sugar high and stuff like that, have them come up with innovative, interesting ideas that sometimes probably actually come to fruition in some form within the company. Yes?
Sure, yeah. It's interesting. You look across the whole hotel sector, everything from how a hotel gets funded to how it gets built to how you're franchising it. There's innovation going on in all of those sectors. We had a hotel last year that was funded via crowdfunding. So you think about all the fintech startups and all that kind of stuff. If you're a lender in the hotel business today, your model is getting disrupted.
Right.
We have hotels today that are getting built in warehouses and shipped to the site. Modular construction is starting to take off.
Oh, yeah, especially in big cities. Just avoiding that union labor, for example.
Yeah, and also it allows you in a tough market weather-wise to keep building through that, and you shorten the development cycle. The business model in franchising is changing. Think about the soft brand concept, which Choice Hotels pioneered. Yeah, and we now have 200 of them. But that was looking at independent boutique owners who are very concerned about their product being something that represents their passion and what they desire to build, but yet they want to be on a platform that brings them business. They want to be part of a loyalty program like Choice Privileges, 35 million members. They want to have the training. If they want our revenue management services, we can provide that to them as well, but yet they get to keep that unique business model. But that, again, was an innovation that came about from us listening to our hotel owners who said, you know what, I've got this great product, but it doesn't fit one of your brands. And we said, well, why don't we bring it in as an independent soft collection idea? And it just took off, and it's grown like wildfire.
Yeah, and if I recall at the time, it was like, in Chicago we have X amount of room, and we're turning away all of this business every single night. This is a great way to be able to create a win-win for owners of different hotels and leverage our reservation system to place those people somewhere.
Absolutely, and it fits in a segment, the upscale segment, which we're really growing in. So it made sense because Choice Hotels, we don't have 6 or 7 upscale brands.
Right.
We have 2. We have the Cambria Hotels, and we have our soft collection brand, Ascend. And so it really gives the flexibility to our owners who want to come into a market. Take Manhattan, for instance. We launched in upscale in that market. We only had 1,500 rooms across all of Manhattan. And the amount of...
That's it?
That was it.
That's crazy.
But think about the millions of people on choicehotels.com who were looking for rooms in Manhattan. So we knew we had the demand. So now we have 2 Cambrias, we have multiple Ascends in Manhattan, and they do really well because you have these travelers who are already on our platform looking for that upscale product and that upscale experience. And so it's really worked out great for us.
Yeah, speaking about upscale, it feels to me, as a news guy, and check out novacancynews.com, everybody, that every single day I'm getting a press release, this new Cambria is opening, another new Cambria is opening, a deal is signed for 3 or 4 Cambrias. It's exciting to see that the brand, after it's got to be 10 years now, is really finally hitting its stride and taking off in the way that you would hope for at the peak of the last cycle. But I know your company got crushed with Cambria when everything kind of just dropped out. So it's great to see it moving forward. What's going on that you feel that now it's hit its stride, other than the obvious that the industry is doing great and people are developing?
So we shifted our strategy about 5-6 years ago for Cambria. Once we came out of the Great Recession, and we said we want to kind of reverse the strategy here, because the original strategy was let's put them in markets, sort of secondary markets, and then we'll go after primary. 5-6 years ago, we said let's put our balance sheet to work. Let's get some hotels in the critical markets, the sort of top 50 U.S. RevPAR markets. And so today we have 38 open. We're going to open Philadelphia next week.
Nice.
Which is right at 2 blocks from City Hall. It's just a great location. There's a Del Frisco steakhouse that's going to be in the ground floor.
Really?
So just a really, really upscale, really drafting right below the upper upscale segment.
Right.
But really just high-end finishes and a beautiful product. So 38 open now. We've got 15 under construction. And we have a pipeline that basically takes us to north of 100 projects. And so the focus now, though, given kind of where we launched, the focus today is let's be in that urban core. Let's be in those dense suburban markets, places like Plano and White Plains, where the business traveler is going. And the consumer insight around the brand is really interesting, because what we've taken is this concept that people are starved for time. So if you can give them back 10 minutes, 15 minutes of their day, you're really going to help them have a great travel experience. And so when you walk into a hotel, one of our Cambrias, as soon as you walk in the front door, you'll see where the front desk is, you'll see where the bar is, you'll see where the elevators are, you'll see where the fitness center is. So the customer isn't having to sort of figure that out on their own.
Okay, I have a problem because now I see the bar. I'm going to lose more than 15
Absolutely.
minutes. I'm going straight over there.
But that's a great point. So the other area that we want to really differentiate ourselves is in the bar. So we have a very sort of beverage forward F&B concept where every one of our Cambrias has a local craft brew. So we just opened in New Orleans. We're open in LAX near the airport. All of those markets have local craft brews so that when you travel there, you're like, if you only have 15 minutes before you have to go catch your flight, but you say to yourself, I want a taste of L.A. or I want a taste of Dallas or I want a taste of New Orleans, it really gives that traveler an opportunity. They can do it all right there in the lobby without having to go outside the hotel.
So does the beer, the taste of L.A. just taste like crushed dreams?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, I apologize. I don't mean to make jokes and take away from the seriousness of this interview. I am, of course, speaking to a CEO here, and I've got to put on a more serious tone about myself. So back to Cambria. Nearly 120 hotels open or in the pipeline, like we just discussed. 2017 was an amazing year in the sense that it's the most openings for Cambria ever for the brand. That's really really great. I expect to see a lot more from that. And the Ascend collection, of course, has been crushing it. Also, 200 you said of those now. All right. So before we talk about some of the other brands right now, I got to talk about your latest acquisition, the Woodspring Suites acquisition, which to me was extremely surprising. But as we were saying before, the microphones got switched on. Once I heard about the deal, it was plainly evident that it made a whole lot of sense. When did you start flirting with this deal, and how'd that go down?
Yeah, so we're constantly looking at how to add to our portfolio. So we have 12 well-segmented brands in the mid-scale, the upscale, and the economy segment. We had about 100 hotels in the extended stay portfolio, and we really wanted to sort of bolster that.
Right.
And so looking in the extended stay segment, that had the highest RevPAR growth across the entire hotel industry last year. So we really saw that as a really attractive segment. We started looking in the segment, and the brand that's had the highest growth, both in units and RevPAR, and fits with a franchise model, was Woodspring Suites.
Right.
And so as we started to sort of talk to the owners about the brand, that was a very, very quick process. We probably spent about 2 months having a conversation with them. We were able to bring an institutional capital partner to the table with us to buy the real estate assets. And it was really just something that really moved very quickly because we knew what we wanted, and we knew that we bring a hotel chain that's as young as that one is, has a fantastic opportunity for growth, and just as important, has fantastic cash-on-cash returns for the owners.
Right.
As soon as we started talking to some of the owners, we knew this was a brand that if we put it on the Choice Hotels platform, we can really accelerate the growth. Well, why is that? One, we have a great franchise development arm.
Right.
We have access to a lot of other developers who want to build this type of asset. Two, we can bring more of that midweek business. We can bring more of the corporate travel business to this economy extended stay segment and really help to boost the same-store sales for each of the Woodspring Suites.
And I'm going to think because Woodspring attracted a lot of non-traditional hotel developers. They were like mall guys and multifamily home developers and stuff, looking for something a little bit different. So now you've got a whole pool of guys that have dipped their toe into developing hotels, and 11 more brands that they might be able to go for at this point as well.
Absolutely. These are developers who are very sophisticated. They're very financially oriented. Many of them, you're right, are not traditional hoteliers. Right. And they don't want to build just one or two. They're building 15 or 20 of them. And so they are really coming to us and saying, we like this market because we want to fill out the footprint of the brand. And so from a growth perspective, we've got a great set of current owners. We have some people that as soon as we announced that we bought it, have come to us and said, hey, we'd like to join the crowd here and build 15 or 20 ourselves. But they're really attracted by the returns. I talk a lot about our focus as a company is all about franchisee return on investment. Woodspring is just first class from the standpoint of the returns that our owners get. And so that's what's attracting new capital to the hotel industry and to this brand in particular.
Right. And I would say the whole extended stay segment is great. And for you folks, again, listening out there,
a huge fan of the extended stay market. I've been very infatuated by it over the last year or so because I find it so interesting, and I feel that it really is meshing with where a lot of consumers are headed to right now, wanting to feel like they have a little bit more flexibility in the way that they enjoy a particular space. People are traveling a little bit longer, mixing business and leisure, so they'll add a few more days on, and it just seems to work really well. And you're right about that return. People are making a boatload of money when they're investing in those types of properties.
They are. The consumer is sort of shifting into this world where they may want to go somewhere and not always go out to eat.
Yeah.
So to have that kitchen in the unit allows them to cook for themselves and save a little money and maybe spend the dollars they save on that on the rest of their travel experience. So it's a great opportunity. We just opened one in Redmond, Washington, not too far from Microsoft's headquarters.
Right.
And Microsoft's putting their interns there. So there's a lot of sort of corporate demand drivers for not just one or two transient night stays, but for people who need to stay 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And this type of product really fits that market.
Nice. So when it comes to extended stay, you think you might be able to add more to the extended stay portfolio or any other particular
Sure.
areas?
So when I look at our extended stay portfolio, we have our mainstay suites in the mid-scale segment. We have suburban, which is more of a conversion opportunity, and then we have Woodspring. So where we're not represented is in an upscale extended stay. So that is definitely a white space in our portfolio and something that we'll look to in the future.
Yeah, because we are at the point now where it's the consolidation game is going. You're playing that game and you're making the right moves. And I'm curious as to where you can go from here. Are you interested in moving even up to different categories you haven't played in before, or is that not part of your strategy?
Yeah, so right now we're focused on the Cambria opportunity, but as we just talked about, it's right at that sort of critical mass perspective. Getting north of 100 hotels will really put that brand on a nice trajectory. So where do we go from here? We have an opportunity in upper upscale.
Yeah,
we're not present there. We're not present in upscale extended stay, and then there's some geographic markets. So particularly in Europe, where we're looking for some opportunity to maybe fill in some of the white space on the globe with you. We're in 40 countries today. But there's an additional set of specific markets that we're looking at that would be really helpful for us.
Because as I look at it as an observer of the hospitality industry and seeing what's happening with the consolidation in the other companies, there seems to be more of a strategy to go from having consumers at all strata and price points, right? So it makes sense in a lot of ways to go that way and to try to fill up your portfolio with new brands that might become available either as a defensive move or as a proactive move in order to grow the brand and fill in those white spaces that you were saying.
Yeah, and the other thing that we've done is we've also looked at our current brands. So take Comfort Inn. That's a brand that we revitalized starting 5 years ago, really by saying there were about 600 assets in that portfolio that no longer fit with the brand. So we moved some of those out of the brand. Some of them were retained in other brands in our system. And then our owners and ourselves collectively have put in or will have put in by 2019 when we're done with our current brand modernization program, $2.5 billion of property improvements to really move the brand up. So what has that resulted in? Well, right now the pipeline of new Comfort Inns is 300.
Wow.
And 80% of those are new construction hotels. Last year, we opened more than one a week. And so from the standpoint of the growth of that brand, that's a brand that's over 30 years old. And here we are looking at it and saying, we've revitalized that brand. It's a complete renaissance in that brand, and it's starting to show up in new product opening in great markets.
So how do you revitalize a brand and keep your existing customers happy while appealing to a new group of customers?
So I think it's the same customer. It's just think about the customer today is so much more design oriented.
That's true.
And that doesn't just mean they're upscale boutique folks. They're mid-scale consumers. You think about when you walk into a Target today.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot more design, specific elements there in carpets and in fixtures and in amenities, those types of things. So
I just think about kitchen tools. You know what was OXO, OXO, just the way that they design and everything looks pretty and well done. I mean, design is that's not the right word, infiltrated every aspect of our life.
It really has. And so if you're operating in the mid-scale segment today, consumers want to, when they travel, they want to see what they see in their own home.
Yeah.
Be that a flat screen TV or be that a carpet that looks very, unique to the market that they live in. So a lot of what we're doing in our mid-scale brands and our Sleep In brand and our Comfort In brand and our Quality brand is making sure that the brand is evolving as the consumer's taste is evolving. And so that's really important. And design is continuing to be a key element of that. Think about our Sleep In brand, right?
Right.
That brand program now is designed to be what we call simply stylish. So it's not too over the top. It's meant to be timeless. But if you walk into that lobby, you're going to see a lot of elements of nature around you. When you get into the guest room, you're going to see a lot of black and white artwork, photography, that type of thing. And we look at the text analytics of people who walk into those rooms and they're saying, wow, at this price, I'm getting this. And the wow factor that we're seeing in a lot of the reviews is really, really positive.
Yeah, it's all about creating that perceived value with the customers these days. I love that you're adding that nature element to it. So the word for the day, kids, is biophilic design. That's the whole idea of bringing natural elements into your internal design space to make it feel more like outside, which I love, which I think is a great trend, and I'd like to see a lot more of in the future.
Yeah, it's something that we really looked at when we came up with the Design to Dream package, which is what the in-house package looks like for Sleep In. It was really bringing in those elements of nature, but they're not all same in the same parts of the country. So if you go to the Southwest, you'll see more of the sort of arid sort of that's the world that you're traveling to. So you want to walk into a hotel and feel like you're in Arizona or you're in New Mexico. If you're in the Pacific Northwest, you see a lot more green. You see a lot more leaves, you see a lot more of the sort of raindrops, that type of thing, so that the consumer really feels like they're in that part of the country.
Well, I would hope so. It would be really weird going to a place in the Pacific Northwest and seeing cacti.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially in this day and age where there's such you're talking about the emphasis on design, but real localized feeling of design, a real sense of place that's being created. Long gone are the days of the cookie cutter properties. So how do you have brands that must evoke the same feeling but aren't bound by specific rules like, hey, you have to have this specific alarm clock?
Yeah. So I think we'll take Cambria, for instance, right? That's a brand where we have specific design elements that have to be in every Cambria. A lot of those things have to do with the bar we talked about, that do with the arrival process and the check-in, and the bath. So the bath in our Cambrias are all sort of, you'll feel like you're in a spa. The bathroom's a little bit larger with this sort of immersive spa feeling. You'll see the subway tile in the shower. Just an upgraded feel to the design elements. Those things all have to be sort of there. But when you go to a hotel like the one we have in New Orleans, you check into that room, you look on the wall, and it looks like the fleur de lis of New Orleans. Okay, well, yeah, that's fun, Pat. But go look closely. You'll see the skull and crossbones.
Well, that's fun.
So it's those unique elements. Okay, right. I'm really in New Orleans, and I get that New Orleans feel. We've done it in the Ascend collection. I was with one of our owners who's in Detroit. He took a 1960s built, it was an old Holiday Inn, in a pretty rundown area of Detroit that's now being regentrified.
Otherwise known as Detroit.
Yes. But you'd be surprised, Glenn.
Sorry, Detroit.
No, you'd be surprised. I mean, there's
no,
so
they're
much
having
going
a renaissance.
on there. They really are.
They've got a whole tech corridor happening down there.
Absolutely. And here's a guy who took this idea, and there's a poem when you walk in, written by a local poet. Everything in that hotel was either built or made in Michigan. So I didn't know this, but Herman Miller chairs, they're a Michigan product.
Huh.
All the millwork is done by local artisans. All the food in the restaurant is homegrown in the state of Michigan.
I love that.
So here's somebody that sort of said, okay, I'm going to take this. This is my passion, but yet I want to be part of the Choice Hotels platform. I want to be part of that customer segment.
Right.
But when you walk into that hotel, it has a story. And we're seeing a lot more owners who really want to kind of do that and really do it on one hand to drive guests, but on a second hand, to make some money. And so having the opportunity to do both is really what we're trying to provide them.
So how do you encourage hoteliers within your system to take that liberty, but not take too much liberty, because then it'll be outside the whole notion of what the brand is supposed to be?
Yeah, so you do have to sort of make sure that, well, one, you want to make sure they don't over-design it for the market they're in.
Right. I guess the word is guardrails, right?
Yeah. Well, part of it is you don't want them to over-design it where they'll never make the money. They'll never make the return for the market that they're in. So we do offer a lot of sort of help on that front. For our Cambria brand, we have an in-house design team that really helps our owners sort of figure out what's right for the market, what makes sense. For most of our other brands, there is a design package. So take the Sleep In Design to Dream package we talked about. A lot of that has been market tested, and we know what works. We know what it costs. We can help our owners figure out, okay, if I'm going to build out this room, what's my cost per key? And because we've done a number of these, we're pretty sure that we understand sort of what the cost to build our products are. And that's what really attracts a lot of developers to Choice Hotels. Take a brand like Sleep In. That's really the lowest cost per key brand to build in the mid-scale segment. And so it's really had a great opportunity to sort of bring developers in who aren't necessarily that familiar with the hotel space. We provide them with all the information they need to make sure they get the product built for the right cost.
Yeah, and speaking of getting the product built for the right cost and new hoteliers, are you able to help them work their way through getting the financing? Because I know a lot of the banks don't seem to like new guys as much as the same old that you're dealing with that already have 40, 50 hotels.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with what brand did they pick.
Right.
So you'll find lenders who are willing to lend to somebody who may not have been in the hotel space so long as they're with a brand that the bank has heard of.
Right.
Which is why it's so important for brands to be at scale. So if you look at our 12 brands, we don't have any brands that, with the exception of Cambria, which is on that ramp, which are less than that sort of 100 units. So really making sure that the lending community is aware of the return on investment that owners are getting and the cap rate they get ultimately once they sell.
Right. All right. So switching to my last topic that I really wanted to talk about, you changed your reservation system. Huge endeavor. A lot of these companies out there that got involved in technology early on are being hamstrung by that technology. Must have taken a big leap of faith and a lot of work to create Choice Edge, your first new global reservation system in 3 decades.
That's right. That's right. Well, if you think about it, Glenn, the entire hotel infrastructure, technology infrastructure is dated. Not just our systems, but everybody's systems. They were all built 30 and 40 years ago. Well, the internet didn't exist 30 years ago, right? A lot of the technology changes that have really come about in the last 15 or 20 years, our infrastructure was built for an earlier time, right? So we as a company, we've actually always been in a technology company.
Yes.
Our 30-year-old system, we built it 30 years ago. Our property management system, which is cloud-based. SkyTouch, yeah. We built that and put it in the cloud actually 10 years ago before anybody was talking about the cloud. So, what we just accomplished last couple of months was we moved our whole central reservation system. So think how people shop, how they book, when they see a rate, when they see the inventory, all of that is sitting now in the cloud. So what does that mean? The cloud, and it sounds real cool. Well, actually, what's interesting, I was just in Seattle last week meeting with the Amazon folks. We're in the Amazon cloud. And last year, they introduced 1,400 new capabilities to their cloud platform. And they reduced their prices 62 times.
Oh, my gosh.
So you're in an environment where there's constant innovation going on. You're riding on the same platform that things like Netflix are riding on. So some really forward-thinking companies ride on that platform. What does that bring to Choice Hotels? Well, it allows us to cut some cost out of running our own technology stack, running our own data centers, and really getting out of that business. But it's our technology. It's our software that's sitting up there. But it really gives us a chance to grow. Well, why do you need to grow, Pat? Well, as we just talked about, the Internet of Things, right? The number of shopping and booking transactions is exploding exponentially. And so, I can throw a bunch of more servers at it and throw more hardware at it, but that costs money. I'd rather be on a platform that allows me to essentially expand as I need to, and as the peak periods come and go and I need more computing power, that's what really allows me to do. The second thing it's going to allow us to do is really get to personalization. People in this industry have been talking about personalization for 10 years.
Right.
But the limiting factor on personalization is, okay, how do you get Pat's data and Glenn's data and make sure it's not Glenn or Pat's, right? You got to verify it. So there's a whole verification process. The veracity of it has to be true, and we change over time, right? We age, we have spouses, we all of a sudden have a family, now we travel differently. All of that information changes on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes I'm traveling for this reason, sometimes I'm traveling for that reason, and
absolutely.
I have different moods too.
Yeah, and so the more of that information that you have about the consumer's travel pattern and what they're willing to share with you, the better you can offer them a different room. Maybe you can offer them a free drink at the bar. Maybe you can offer them an upsell. Maybe you can offer them their stay at their next travel opportunity. So a lot of that is really data driven. And I believe, look, if you want to control your destiny today, you have to control your data. And so this platform, which is also sitting in the cloud, a whole new data analytics platform, was part of the new central reservation system.
I think that's fascinating because we've been talking about this issue, I think, for a decade plus now. All the companies have been collecting. But as far as the consumer side goes, I've seen very little actionable insight that turns into really creating those personalized experiences, which I call mass customization, the idea of creating individualized experiences for large groups of people over time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny because not every piece of technology works. When I checked into this hotel 2 nights ago, there were 15 people in line, and we're all standing there looking at this thing that says mobile kiosk check-in. It didn't work. So a few people went up and tried it. It didn't work, right? So the technology doesn't always work.
Right.
And so you have to really think about when you're putting technology in the hands of the hotel owner, you're putting it in the hands of the consumer. It's got to work. It's got to work seamlessly. And in a franchise model, which we don't manage our hotels, we have to really make sure it works because those franchise owners are counting on us, not just to make sure it works today, but that the system will work 5 years from now and 10 years from now. So investing in the future is really where we always focus on.
Right, and also that ease of use. And I think the cloud has opened up opportunities specifically through the PMS that you offer for faster learning, and it's much more intuitive a system. Than,
That's right. Yeah.
I don't go to a Choice hotel and they go, hi, and then I hear for 20 minutes while they're not looking at me because it's so much more intuitive and faster and easier to use.
Yeah. So that insight was drawn from the fact that we have actually pretty high turnover at our front desks. And so we needed to make sure that you don't have to take someone and take 4 days training them on how to check someone in.
No, and as little as a shift, people are up to speed.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's very much sort of Windows driven. It's things people are used to. It's point and click. And the booking process is something else we focus on, which is it's got to be quick. I've got, for the most part, 80-room hotels, right? So we don't have 20 people in line checking in, right? But when those consumers get to the front desk, they don't want to stand there for 20 minutes while you're clicking around on the keyboard back there.
I don't want to stand there for 30 seconds,
exactly.
Honestly.
And so the shorter we can make that process, the better off we're going to be.
Right. But I still think you have to have that process because I talk about this a lot in the podcast. I'm so afraid of technology interrupting the interpersonal relationships that could be built at the property level, which to me is where the magic of hospitality really takes place.
Yeah. So I mentioned we try things, right? Mm-hmm. We built and put into our lobbies 10 years ago a kiosk. Mm-hmm. And guess what the customer did? They walked right past it and went to the human being behind the front desk. Well, that's our natural right. You're not going to sit there and ignore people. And that gives the hotel a great opportunity to welcome the guest, show them a smile, make them feel welcome, make them feel wanted, make them feel respected. That's the other piece that people often forget. And so those are the things that you have to think about because, yes, we can automate a lot of the hotel stay process, but you don't want to eliminate the human element.
No, you certainly don't, and I like to feel validated,
Yeah. Don't we all?
Yeah, right, for sure. Before we wrap up, any final thoughts, anything that I missed that you're dying to get off your chest? Maybe all your corporate secrets so I could get a scoop?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that is a bit of a corporate secret that we need to make, we're doing a big effort on to make it more well-known, and that is our loyalty program.
Right.
So we actually refreshed that in February of 2016, so a little over 2 years ago. Since that time, we've added 10 million new members.
Wow.
Which is really astounding. We've been voted the best loyalty program by USA Today twice. And the reason for that is we're giving people an instant reward. This was another insight. To your point, you want to feel validated? Yeah. You don't want to have to come to our hotel and I say, yes, if you stay with me 15 more nights, I'll finally recognize who you are, and I'll give you a little treat, right?
Right.
So if you check into one of our hotels today, you get an instant reward. It might be $5 for a Starbucks. It might be an Amazon gift card. It might be 10 cents off on your next gallon of gas at Shell. Ooh. So because a lot of our hotels are in drive-to locations, but it's making the customer feel welcome, making them feel wanted, and giving them something for their loyalty. So that's another just thing that we as a company, I think we've gotten a great amount of internal validation, but we got to get that word out to who the consumer really is.
All right, so you're internally validated. You've externally validated me. I think this conversation has gone really well. What's the most exciting thing that you're anticipating about in the future as a CEO of Choice?
The growth, the growth path we're on, the excitement around Cambria in the upscale segment, the excitement around Woodspring Suites in the economy extended stay segment, and really the excitement in our core business, Comfort Inn and Quality Inn. We're just on a fantastic growth path. We added 704 new hotel contracts last year, which was the most we've done since 2007. So we're really on a fantastic growth path, and that's what excites me.
Well, I'm very excited for your development team, but also really worried for your development team because they got to beat that number this year.
Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, they're going to suffer a lot of wrath from
Absolutely,
you.
Glenn. That's right.
He's not nearly as nice off the mic as he is on the mic. Just kidding. It's been great talking with you. Before we wrap up, shameless plug for Choice Hotels. What do you want to say? Anything you want.
Choice Hotels focuses on our owners' ROI, and because of that, we've been very successful for over 80 years.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you. Pat Pacious has been a great experience for me. Thank you so much for being here today and allowing me to talk with you. And thank you all for listening to the show. And if you're not getting our newsletter, what are you thinking about? Text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866, and you'll get our Sunday night newsletter, and you'll never have to worry about missing a podcast. So for Pat Pacious and myself, I want to thank you for listening, and I'll be back next week. That is, unless I decide to go out and crowdsource a hotel and open up a Woodspring Suites. Thanks for listening. Be back next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.